Hi friends, this is not Nate Nims from Grace, but Irene DeMaris from Iowa Interfaith Power and Light. Today we're virtually continuing our soup and sermon Lenten series. Although it's okay if you're not eating soup. Already ate lunch during hunger, and if you're not familiar with hunger, it is being so hungry you're angry. If you're eating now, or if you're waiting to eat like I am. So for those of you who do not know me, I'm a member of Grace, and I'm a balcony person, so shout out to my balcony friends. Since many of you have been watching the church's Facebook Live feed for a few weeks, I'm broadcasting from the parsonage. I'm married to Nate Nims, the pastor, and this is my first time on Facebook Live, as I prefer to be behind the scenes, so a little grace might be appreciated as I talk quicker than my spouse. So I want to give a warm welcome to the Iowa Interfaith Power and Light Network, and for those of you joining from that network, we're so glad to have you here today. So Nate's not the only one in our house who went to seminary. I also have a Master's of Divinity, but I've used mine in a different way. The beautiful thing about ministry is that it can come in many shapes and sizes. I've always been called to do work beyond the church doors. My ministry falls into what I name as the work of public theology. So the basic definition of theology is faith-seeking understanding. Yet there's a second piece to that definition that we don't typically hear. So faith-seeking understanding and finding joy in God. So what is public theology? Public theology is what you practice. It's your faith seeking understanding in the public sphere and doing it by creating mutual relationships and by doing the right and just thing. It's about applying what we learn in church, Bible studies, our rituals, and our spiritual practices, and our relationships to how we live into our morals and values. I like to tell or threaten clergy that the people in the pews, there are a lot of us that are public theologians, and we have a lot to offer. Hi, Brad. So anyways, it's about working together, knowing we're all created and connected, and that all of our decisions impact others. It's the work that we're all doing together right now. So anyways, 2.5 weeks ago, I started a new job as the organizer at Iowa Interfaith Power and Light, Iowa IPL. And our mission is to empower people of faith and conscience to take bold and just action on climate change. So we do this in a different way by engaging people of faith, like y'all, by connecting our faith to the care for creation. So we mobilize at a local, state, and federal level. We work tongue-tied, little grace. So we work with different networks and partner organizations. So we've been on a lot of Zoom calls. We use a shared leadership model, and we get to work with college students as they step into leadership roles on their campuses. And we focus on what connects us, what brings us together, and engaging our faith to address climate. It's a great organization, and I'm really honored to work for it. So as I sat down to reflect on the work that Iowa IPL does and the Sermon on the Mount, which has been our theme during Lent, I did what I usually do with the Sermon on the Mount. I flipped from the Matthew version to the Luke version. So there are parallel passages in the different Gospels, and I find that the Luke version resonates with me. The Luke version is commonly known as the Sermon on the Plain, which I feel like is very apt for Iowa. So Grace, the church, has been going through, I already said that, sorry. But anyways, so we've been going through the Beatitudes and the different parts of Sermon on the Mount. So today we're going to look into Luke and kind of crack open the text in a different way that you may never have heard or thought about. So I'm going to read from Luke chapter 6, verses 17 through 26. Jesus came down with them and stood on a level place. with a great crowd of his disciples and a great multitude of people from all of Judah, Jerusalem, the coast of Tyre and Sidon, they had come to hear him and to be healed of their diseases. And those who were troubled with unclean spirits were cured. And all in the crowd were trying to touch him, for power came out of him and healed all of them. Then he looked at his disciples and said, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you and when they exclude you, revile you, defame you on the account of the Son of Man. Rejoice in the day and leap for joy, for surely your reward is great in heaven, for that is what their ancestors did to the prophets. But woe to you who are rich, for you have received your consolation. Woe to you who are full now, for you will be hungry. Woe to you who are laughing now, for you will mourn and weep. Woe to you when all speak well of you, for that is what their ancestors did to the false prophets." It's a little different, right? As I sat with this text while holding the weight of COVID-19, I wrote down the urgency of now. That's why I'm drawn to Luke. The writer is quick and to the point. We go from blessed are the poor in spirit to blessed are the poor. Jesus is flipping the status quo in both Matthew and Luke, yet Luke is urgent, to the point, and a little in your face. Maybe it makes you a little uncomfortable, and that's okay. That's how we learn. Scholars call this part of Luke as the blessing and the woes. There are 4 of each. They're a study of power and privilege. Blessed are those we have pushed to the margins, who do not have the power or wealth or prestige. Blessed are not just the privilege of society, it is now shared with those without. Jesus is calling for equity, where everyone is connected and is in it together, a beloved community, the kingdom of God in the here and now. So I spent a good chunk of my time yesterday on Twitter. So organizing and activism, it has made the transition to online as we practice social distancing. Anyway, on Twitter, we were trying to bring attention to some of the environmental details in the COVID-19 stimulus package in the Senate. My boss, Matt Russell, and I have spent a good deal of time talking about what is the line in terms of our work in global climate change during a time of global pandemic. We have landed on using our platform to talk about our interconnectedness and amplifying the voices of our partner organizations or those who match our morals and values. We'll get back to the Twitter stuff. Iowa IPL is an environmental justice organization. So the Department of Energy defines environmental justice as the fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. As an interfaith organization, we bring in voices from our members and the plethora of religious backgrounds and communities they are a part of. Faith provides the foundation and the fuel for the work that we do. So as a Christian and as a Cradle United Methodist, I use social justice as my lens of life. And I did so the entire time I was in seminary. So when I think about environmental justice, I actually go all the way back to Genesis. I have spent a lot of time in Genesis. So Genesis 1:28-30, this is the NRSV, New Standard Revised Version. God said to Eve and Adam, "Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish and of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every little thing living thing that moves upon the earth. God said, "See, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is upon the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in it in its fruit, and you shall have them for food, and to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life. I have given every green plant for food." And it was so. Having dominion over creation, owning it, controlling it, humanity has had our dominion colored glasses on for far too long. If we control, own, have dominion over something, that a mutual relationship? If all of creation is made in the image of God, what does polluting our rivers or the extinction of animals and plants mean? A framework of dominion and not thinking of creation as part of the kingdom of God in the here and now has led to the slow heating of our planet as the Arctic melts, rivers, again, polluted from centuries of waste being just casually thrown in, the loss of trees and carbon being released from the over-tilling of our soil. Dominion is intrinsically linked in how patriarchy has developed, and Eurocentrism is still a thing. Creation is connected, and we all depend on each other for survival. Every living thing. Yet, centuries of dominion have been harmful, just to put it lightly. The Common English Bible doesn't use dominion in its translation, but charge. So how does that charge change your lens on the text? Having charge over the fish of the sea. To me, it feels like we're babysitting or watching over creation. And I'm going to get a little biblically nerdy right here. So since the Hebrew scriptures have been translated into English, just like the Christian scriptures have been translated from Greek to English, sometimes the nuance of a word is lost. The Hebrew text in Genesis has been translated as dominion, but it seems to miss the interconnected call that God has given us, and stewardship. Stewardship better points to that. So, if we look, what does stewardship look like? Caretakers for God, perhaps? A world where we're all created equal? How does that impact the relationship with the ground we walk on? The way we interact with nature and its many creatures? How do we steward our farmlands? The difference between dominion and stewardship is glaring, and it has impacted our environment and many other areas of justice. I like to think of environmental justice as ground zero for most justice issues. Because when we look at any justice issue with a dominion lens, it's not stewardship. So, dominion has pushed people who are not white, straight, cisgendered men to the margins for far too long. Dominion has put profits over people and profits over our planet. Stewardship reminds us that we're all in this together, from the grass and the prairie to the evergreen trees of my home state, Washington, the fish in the sea, the monarch butterflies, to our friends in India. We're all connected. We're all in this together. For me, this is what roots me as a person of faith and as someone who gets to do ministry in environmental justice. We're currently in a global pandemic. Kind of hard to ignore that. COVID-19 is spreading across the world, and each day numbers rise in our country. I'm originally from Washington State, and the majority of my social network is there. My parents have been social distancing since Ash Wednesday, and now they're sheltering in place. My friends who are pastors in the Seattle area have closed down their buildings, and for me, I knew it was coming here. It was hard to not see that we're all interconnected. People are social distancing, which is more like physical distancing. People are remotely working if they have that privilege. People who are able to are still paying for their preschools that are closed. Small businesses are getting creative to stay in business. And we are finding solutions to help those on the front line who are the most at risk, who do not have paid sick time, or they have high deductible health insurance plans. People are getting laid off, and some landlords are reducing rent or not requiring rent to be paid for the next few months. Internet companies are actually helping low-income families get the internet so when their children are home, they can continue to learn. The action of being together yet physically apart is our collective effort to flatten the curve and slow the spread of the virus. There are a lot of positive stories right now of people helping others and penguins getting to stroll around in a zoo or aquarium. But you can't ignore that a lot of people are hurting. I have had friends laid off. A family member actually volunteered to get laid off to help the small business she worked at survive at this time. And I have a lot of friends who are learning to work remotely while having children at home. And healthcare workers do not have the supplies they need. And seniors in high school and college don't get those precious few months before graduation. We're all in this together. We're all connected, just like we're connected to creation and nature. We need to be stewarding our resources for all of us and not looking at this with a lens of dominion and only helping the privileged. Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. Blessed are you who are hungry now, for you will be filled. Blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Which brings me to my morning on Twitter yesterday. So Twitter is Facebook in only 140 characters. It's quicker and I would say it's more news-centric and is full of hashtags. Activism on Twitter takes many forms, and for Iowa IPL yesterday, it came in the form of a Twitter storm revolving around hashtag people not polluters. So what is a Twitter storm, you might be asking? It's when a group of people keep tweeting around a topic with the same hashtag. The goal is to bring attention to other Twitter users and maybe become a trending topic. So hashtag people not polluters was a group of environmental and climate change groups bringing attention to the COVID-19 stimulus bill being worked on in the Senate. We are bringing attention to the fact that the average working family needs help and funds more than corporations. That if corporations receive funds, they shouldn't be able to buy back their stocks, and they should have to implement environmental policies. We need to remember that public transportation will need funds, and that preschools are usually nonprofits and typically do not qualify for unemployment. We need to remember our food sources, from the soil to the hands that plant and pick on the farms to those who transport it, stock it, and work in our grocery stores. That most people who have multiple jobs, they still have to go to work when they're sick because they don't have paid sick time or they are not being paid a living wage and they need that income to survive. As much as some corporations have been stepping up and doing the right thing, we need to prioritize the family worker because we're all in this together. It's a justice issue. It revolves around our collective justice, lens, equity, all that jazz. So at the root, we are calling out the woes of Luke, that we must remember the blessed. Again, equity is key, and we must do what we are called to do by God, to be good stewards of creation. You can be good stewards of a budget or a stimulus bill. The world is moving quickly, and we are putting massive policies into place that for years, our leaders, frankly, were like, it can't be done. It's too much. It's not even fathomable. But who else besides me thought that Andrew Lang's dream of a universal income was never going to be taken seriously in their lifetime? And it's a hot topic now. So big things can happen in short periods of time. So we're seeing unprecedented action all over the world to flatten the curve Well, nations are forgiving debt, providing free healthcare and testing, prioritizing people over profits. Science is finally making a comeback. I love that it is, and I hate that I have to call it a comeback. And it's being taken seriously by those who have dismissed it for years. Cars are off the road as companies that have resisted remote working a few days a week are now actively telling their employees to stay home. And for someone who needs to order a work laptop, there are so many laptops on the internet that have been sold out or on back order. So people really are working from home if they're able to. Working from home is a privilege that I'm lucky to have. So change is possible, and the ripples of how this impacts our connection are great. It's not perfect, it's not just as we want, but we're finally seeing that we can move in the direction and the way that is equitable. So as I reflect on this moment of time, I can't help but wonder if we can change the world during a pandemic. Shouldn't we be able to pivot when appropriate to climate change? Because much like a pandemic, climate change impacts the blessed the hardest. Environmental justice is needed for the blessed and for those who do not have the shared means as who Jesus calls the woes, right? Iowa IPL is still doing the work, and Matt and I have a full monthly work plan through the year to prove it. We're still recruiting college interns to work on our Call to Climate Action 2020. We're planning environmental policy forums in congressional districts, and we're empowering farmers to embrace their creativity to come up with practical solutions to fight climate change. Our partners and those we work with have not slowed down, and I know that I feel strengthened by all the change that's going on. We are connected as we're all seeing, and we're all connected in creation. I will never stop saying that. My prayer is that we continue to do the work of stewardship so that we can heal creation and live into the equity that Jesus has called us to. Prayer is more than thoughts and words. Prayer is action. So I'm going to leave you with a few things you can do to put prayer into action. This morning, the Senate reached a deal on the latest COVID-19 stimulus package. But more likely than not, this is not going to be our last stimulus package. So it's really, really important that our representatives to Congress and our governor hear from people of faith that support equity. So call and ask our elected official, call and ask them what they are doing for Iowans and not corporations. And so there we go, Nate has just put down all of the phone numbers for our elected officials in Iowa. The DC, they're all having their staffs work remotely. Those are the DC phone numbers because there's so many different district offices. So it's there. Please make some calls today. You can follow the work that we're doing at Iowa IPL in a few ways. You can check out our website at www.iowaipl.org and check out our religious leaders' call to climate action. You can follow us on Facebook by searching for Iowa Interfaith Power and Light, and our Twitter handle is at Iowa IPL. Again, links are there. Like us. And I know that Grace's Church and Society Committee has voted to focus on 3 different areas, and environmental justice is one of them. And I really, really hope that we can all work together to empower our faith community to take bold climate action. Thank you so very much for joining us today for our soup and sermon Lenten series at Grace. Keep checking out Grace's Facebook page for the latest meme craze. Literally all the memes you've seen, Nate is making. Like he's creating for y'all. and see the other ways, you just laughed in the other room, that we can bridge the gap during this time of physical distance. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you later. And thank you from the bottom of my heart. Love you all. Nate, I can't turn, oh, here. I can turn this off.